Rapper Kodak Black's legal team blasted the Biden DOJ for Hunter Biden's plea deal yesterday, calling that decision a direct reflection of a two-tier justice system. The judge presiding over Black's case handed the hip-hop artist a much stiffer sentence for committing the fundamentally same crime as the president's son.
Kodak Black was sentenced to 3 years behind bars after pleading guilty in 2019 to providing an incorrect Social Security number on a federal gun purchase form in order to buy 3 firearms from a Miami area shop.
Which is a no-no.
It is a no-no.
But it is a federal weapons crime, which is the same thing Hunter Biden committed. And I think there is a two-tier justice system going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating look. Obviously, there's something kind of upside down about conservatives who haven't historically been very invested in creating more equality in the criminal justice system. There tends to be a desire to ratchet up criminal penalties, generally speaking, and be tough on crime. But it is fascinating to watch. This one Twitter user, Chicago1Ray, tweets, "This is what white privilege looks like, folks. Where's Al Sharpton or Benjamin Crump when the Biden DOJ decides to let white people walk when blacks are serving time for the same crime? No one's above the law."
And it's not just this person, it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do we have that tweet? Can we throw that up there? Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets, unfortunately, Kodak's daddy was not, oh, that's Mehdi Hassan, but do we have the Marjorie Taylor Greene one? There it is. Unfortunately, Kodak's daddy was not president. And he's not white.
Marjorie?
Woke Marjorie.
Woke Marjorie Taylor Greene is pointing out a racially tiered criminal justice system. Gosh, is Marjorie Taylor Greene acknowledging that black defendants fare worse under our laws?
They fare worse under the favored sons of Joe Biden. Yeah, she even makes the racial point.
That's the thing. Like, how do you back at some later date? Is she going to go back to the kind of colorblind, we're all equal, racism doesn't exist anymore?
No,
framing?
She's Marjorie Taylor X now.
I'm dying for this. Now, we did throw up for a second. Let's pull that back. Mehdi Hassan's tweet. This has been the typical response. Suddenly, every Hunter Biden-obsessed Republican on this hell site is an expert on Wesley Snipes and Kodak Black and is up in arms over double standards on tax avoidance and evasion. Well, and he's pointing to that big New York Times expose on President Trump's taxes. And look, to me, fair enough. Take them all down. Don't let the rich and powerful get off with what poor and working class people do. We've talked about this ad nauseum in the context of the story about the IRS funding, how the most audited city in the United States of America is this tiny, poor town in Mississippi where the average income is like below the minimum wage. So, you know, there is quite obviously a two-tiered system in the United States of America.
Now, Kodak Black, long history of crimes. Yeah. He's only 27 years old.
Yeah, he's been a very productive man.
Was actually pardoned by President Trump before Trump left office.
Yeah, so this is an interesting posture because there's an argument that says, well, Kodak Black's legal team is obviously sympathetic. No, it's more sympathetic to Donald Trump because ultimately it was Donald Trump who let him out of prison. So now he's going to want to turn the screw to Joe Biden out of a kind of like sympathy, gratitude, shall we say, for what Donald Trump did.
It's interesting. The criminal justice reform category is in a weird place because I think bipartisan support for criminal justice reform was, I think, increasing through the aughts and through the beginnings of the 20-teens and culminating in the First Step Act, which Trump signed and touted as a massive achievement. Now I see like DeSantis people, the DeSantis War Room is talking about how that was the worst thing ever done in the history of time. You know, in the kind of greater, there are concerns about crime, whether or not you think crime has actually increased. Concerns about crime are more salient today than they were 10 years ago, which has, I think, led some people who are willing to go along with criminal justice reform to back off it. So I think it's repolarizing a bit. Trump was, and this is encapsulated by Trump's kind of both and approach to criminal justice reform, where he's still touting the First Step Act at the same time saying that like all drug dealers should be executed. Brett Baier called him out for this, referencing Alice Johnson, I believe her name is, the grandmother who was let go under the First Step Act and really became the face of that movement. In this interview they had the other day, let's play some of that.
I focused on nonviolent crime. As an example, a woman who you know very well was in jail. She had 24 more years to Served. She served for 22 years. She had 20.
Alice Johnson.
Alice.
She was in the Super Bowl.
High quality, yeah. I said, how many years? And she was on a telephone call, and they were involved in selling marijuana, mostly marijuana. And she got like 50 years in jail.
But she'd be killed under your plan.
Huh?
As a drug dealer.
No. Under that, it would depend on the severity. It would depend on the severity.
She's technically a former drug dealer. She had multi-million-dollar cocaine ring.
Any drug dealer, look.
So even Alice Johnson in that ad.
She can't do it, okay? By the way, if that was there, no, she wouldn't be killed. It would start as of now, so you wouldn't go to the past.
I know, but your policy.
No, starting now, yeah.
Are you're laughing because he's doing the killing motion as he's describing
No,
it?
because he's saying, well, technically Alice Johnson wouldn't be implicated because it's not retroactive, so somebody else's grandmother, but not Alice Johnson. Yeah, look, first
You
of all.
see the confusion.
Yes, he did not do well in that moment, and this is a masterclass where journalists should be looking closely at this Bret Baier interview. Bret Baier did what Caitlin Collins and so many other people are unwilling to do, which is to come off as genuinely dispassionate and just putting the questions and not seeming like a bad faith actor trying to gotcha somebody. Because Bret Baier was so, but this is your plan, like help me understand. Did Donald Trump not have an opening to be like, you're trying to get me, or like you're trying to catch me up? It didn't feel like a gotcha, and consequently, Donald Trump had to justify his conflicting positions and did a poor job doing so. So yeah, the Republican Party is in a really fascinating place right now on criminal justice issues, especially as they increasingly are willing to dabble in weaponizing identity politics to turn the screw on Democrats. If Marjorie Taylor Greene is in a world where she's willing to say Black people are treated worse by the American criminal justice system, and you have all of these conservatives now saying it's not just that Kodak Black is being treated differently because Hunter Biden is the president's son and he's affluent, but also because he's white, they're opening themselves up to having to recognize what a lot of criminal justice advocates have been saying for a very long time.
Right, and the Republican Party, under Trump, was going after Black voters, obviously did not do extraordinarily well by any stretch of the imagination, but at the margins did actually do a little bit better. This has to do with actually race is kind of depolarizing a little bit as this becomes, as the two parties become more of class-based parties, frankly, with Republican Party catering to working class people, at least in its rhetoric. You can obviously take issue with the policies, but the rhetoric is absolutely targeting working class voters, and black voters are certainly are more liberal or more to the left than white voters, but within the Democratic Party, Black voters on a lot of culture and social issues, particularly, are not to the left of white voters. The white voters are to the left of them. So overall, you have a state where Black voters are in the Democratic coalition and are not conservative, but within the Democratic coalition are a little. You can find differences in the kinds of voters that the Democratic Party increasingly speaks to.
And as Black presidential candidate Cornel West plants his flag in the general election as an independent Green Party candidate, someone who has extremely high name recognition among Black voters and is broadly respected among Black voters as well. There is, a little bit of diversity there because of some of his attacks on Obama, et cetera. But increasingly, people are more open to criticisms of Obama, especially as he spends this time, hanging out with millionaires and making podcast content that nobody listens to. And I think that is setting up a really interesting dynamic in the kind of racial playing field for 2024. Of course, we'll continue to follow all of that as
the Obama Meghan Markle podcast. Co-host a podcast. It'll be the most expensive, least listened to podcast of all time. Well, that does it for us for today. I didn't comment on this yet, but I think we kind of coordinated, sort of.
We're both in a blue tartan sort of mood
Am I
today.
allowed to say that? Because you laugh at me when I say, oh, we're matching, and you're like, well, those are not on the same color wheel or whatever it is.
I think it's like a scientifically backed truth that men are not as good as identifying colors. It's a hunter-gatherer thing, Robby. You weren't the one that was supposed to be picking the berries. So I'll let you out. But this time today, I validate you, sir.
I'm hunting the elk or the moose or whatever. All right, we'll be back to bring you another very special edition of our show tomorrow.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
See you later.
Bye-bye.